Daniel, the New York Jets finally ended their head coach search, hiring former defensive coordinator Robert Saleh for the new head coaching position. Why was this such an important hire for the Green and White?
Well, this is a huge offseason for the Jets. And, I believe in the leadership that's in place there with Joe Douglas. And you look at the draft class they had last year, that gives Jet fans some hope here that they're going to be able to add some talent to this roster. Now it's about finding the right leader as you kind of begin this new era of Jets football. And I think, finding somebody that had a presence, somebody that could bring a little bit of an edge to this team, I think was important. And I think when you look at Robert Saleh and his background, you think of you think of energy, leadership, presence, bringing a little bit of that edge with him as well. It's an exciting time for Jet fans. The hope is 5 years from now, Jet fans will look back on this year and this moment for this offseason as the time where things finally got turned around.
A lot of people around the league talk about his energy and presence, especially along that sideline. But what other characteristics make him such an appealing head coach for the Green and White?
Well, everything that I've been told from guys in San Francisco that have been around him and from guys that have been with him at previous stops is they talk about his intelligence, extremely bright. That's something that stands out. They talk about his ability to relate to players, to be able to communicate with players, I think has never been more important than it is now. If you just look at on the record comments from his players, particularly with Richard Sherman and how they believe in him and have faith in him and were lobbying for him to get a head coaching job, I think that tells you a lot about him, not only just as a coach, but how he's been able to relate and communicate and develop those relationships.
How important is that culture aspect when it comes to the head coach and the players on that team?
I think it's huge. And I think, sometimes culture can be a buzzword and people don't necessarily even know what does that entail? What is that like? And I think to me, it's about setting those standards of what it looks like, what the work looks like, not only from a player standpoint, but from a coach standpoint, what that commitment level is going to be like. And to me, that's something that's incredibly important. When I was with the Baltimore Ravens and Joe was there at that time, we kind of grew up in that world, and we talked about guys that play like Ravens, and that meant something. There was a passion that we wanted in players and guys to be physical and competitive and tough. And I think that's you look at that draft class last year, led by Mekhi Becton, you can see that Joe's trying to get that going there with the Jets. And I think when you have a general manager and a coach that share that same mindset, you go out and find players that have those traits, and then that's when the culture really starts to change and you can get this machine built. And I think, Coach Saleh and Joe have a very similar belief system in terms of how you build a successful football team. It starts up front. It starts with being physical on both sides of the line of scrimmage. And there's a mentality that goes along with that that's not just going to be with your linemen. It's going to be even with your skill players. And I think Robert Saleh is going to attract those types of players as free agents, and they're going to go out and find those types of players in the draft.
What ideas do you think that are going to be important to him when it comes to surrounding himself with the right staff members?
Well, everything I've heard about Coach Saleh is about the fact that he's a teacher. So to me, it's getting coaches in here that can develop. I think there's a misnomer out there that, these college players, the college coaches and high school coaches have to really develop these kids. And then when you get to the NFL, it's all about scheme. And it's just not true. These guys still have a lot of development ahead of them. Being able to get a coaching staff, when you look at the offensive line and defensive line, secondary, those spots in particular, getting guys that are great teachers and can really work and cultivate some of the young talent that they're going to have to play with here over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. And one last question for you before I let you go. What are some of your biggest expectations from Joe Douglas and this New York Jets team heading into this offseason? Because there's, like you said, there's a lot of big moves to make.
Yeah, expectations are going to be high. This is the big one here. They've got multiple first-round picks this year and next year. So the success of this team long-term is going to be shaped by what happens in this offseason as well as next offseason. So it's really a 2-year window they have to build the guts of this team. So it's going to be a great offseason. I think if you're a Jets fan, you have to be excited with where you are resource-wise in free agency as well as the draft. They're well situated to really improve their roster.